Hello ladies and gentlemen, how you guys doing today? Hope you're doing well. Hope you are continuing to social distance yourself, keep your hands washed, and stay home. Okay, today we want to go over our review for test 4. Now you're almost there because after test 4 there's test 5, and after test 5 it's final examination and we're done. Okay, so hang in there, you're almost there, and now let's get into test 4's review. Alright, here we go. Let's get it. Number 1. The square root of 9 divided by 121 equals the square root of 9 divided by the square root of 121, which equals 3 over 11, and that's done. That's it for that. Alright, the square root of negative 289 is no solution. No solution. Why? Because we have a negative inside the house. We have a negative inside of the radical, and the index is an even number. So this is no solution. Alright, number 3, the square root of 121 times x squared equals the square root of 121 times the square root of x squared, which equals 11x. And that's it. Number 4, this is the big one. Alright, I gave you a process somewhere back there, I think in section 6.1. Here we go. So the first thing we have to do here is let's take care of our variables first. Alright, so we're going to have the cube root of, here we go, 80, 64, alright, 7 minus 4 is 3, x cubed, and then 8 minus 3 is 5, y to the 5th. That's step 1, simplify the variables. Step 2, split them up. So I have the cube root of 80x cubed, y to the 5th, divided by the cube root of 64. Alright? Go ahead and find the cube root of 64. The cube root of 64 is 4. So the cube root of 64 is 4. And put this 4 in your back pocket. Don't forget it's there. Okay? So now let's work on the cube root of 80 x cubed y to the 5th. Let's work on that. What is that going to equal? That's going to equal the cube root of, I don't know. Let's find out what goes in and what goes out. What goes out, what goes in. Let's see. So first, I'm going to do the cube root of 80. I'm going to look at the cube root of x cubed, and I'm going to look at the cube root of y to the 5th. So I take each section and I separate it out. Cube root of 80, cube root of x cubed, the cube root of y to the 5th. Alright? Let's break down 80. Doesn't matter how you start. 80 is 8 times 10. And 8 is 4 times 2. And 10 is 2 times 5. And 4 is 2 times 2. Bring down this 2. Bring down this 2. And bring down this 5. See how I did that? I broke it down to prime numbers. And then what I have to do here, I have to group it by 3's. Alright? Here's a set of 3 right here. And that's it. So what did not get grouped, which is just 2 times 5, that goes back inside. So 10 goes back in, because 2 times 5 is 10 inside. What did get grouped, only one of them go out front. So I'm going to put one of them out front. So 1, 2 goes here in the front. And I'm finished with this. Now let's do the cube root of x cubed. So I divide 3 into 3, goes 1 time, 3, remainder 0. So this is what goes out. and this is what stays in. So 1x goes out front. 0 x's are on the inside. Let's do y's. 3 divided into 5. 3 divided into 5. That goes 1 time. That goes, give me 3, and my remainder is 2. So 2 stays in, and 1 goes out. So I have 1 y to go out, and I have 2 y's in. All right, and there you go. There's your answer, right? Good. Oh, wait a minute. What's in the back pocket? Don't forget that. Don't forget the 4. So that means, let me make some more room here. Don't forget the 4 in the back pocket, the 4. So this has to be divided by 4. And so now you have to simplify it. And so if I simplify it, I can reduce 2 over 4. 2 going to itself 1 time, 2 going to 4 2 times. So we're going to have x, y cubed, the square root of 10y squared, all over 2. There's your answer. All right. That's number 4. That's a lot. All right, number 5. 64 to the negative 2/3. That's the same as 1 over 64 to the positive 2/3, which equals the cube root of 1 over 64, and this quantity is squared, which equals, well, we just did the cube root of that. That's going to be 1 over 4 squared, which is 1 over 16. Now, if you have a calculator, one of these, TI-83, you can put this in the calculator and it'll give you the answer. All right? So, if I were you, I would put parentheses probably around this negative 2/3, and there you go. Use the calculator. So it's 64 to the power of parentheses negative 2/3. Hit enter, and then don't forget, once you hit enter, you got to hit math, enter. Let me see if I can show you on it. Let me see. Can you see that? Can you guys see that? Hold on. Let me check it out. There we, yeah, you can see that. Watch this. Let me clear this out. Let me see. Clear. And if I were to go 64 to the power of, watch this, parenthesis, negative 2 divided by 3, close parenthesis. You see that? Can you see it? Yeah. Now hit enter. Right? Then go to math, M-A-T-H. Hit enter 2 times. 1, 2. Voila. 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 There you go. 1 over 16. Boom. And so that's how you do it with a calculator. Let's move forward. All right. So take the radical, write it as a rational exponent. So this is going to equal, remember, you have to multiply the index. What's the index here that you can't see? By default, if you don't see the index, you know it's power 2. That's going to be the 12th root of x, because 6 times 2 is 12, which is going to equal x to the power of 1/12. That's the answer. X to the power of 1/12. All right. What do we get here? Well, you take our coefficients and you multiply them. So it's going to be 3 times 7 times 1, which is 21. X to the power of, now add this up, negative 1/2 plus 2/3 plus 2. What is that going to give us? Well, that's going to equal, let's see, 21x to the, let me get my calculator. Let me see. I have negative 1 divided by 2 plus 2/3 2 divided by 3 plus 2. Enter, then go math, enter. I get 13 over 6. 13 divided by 6. That's done. All right. Here, solve for y. Solve for y. All right, well, I'm going to divide both sides first by 25. I'm going to get y squared equals 9 over 25, which means now I have y squared equals 9 over 25. And so, I need a little bit more room here. Let me take number 9 down a little bit lower. Write number 9 down here, which is x plus 10 squared equals 169. I think that's number 9. Yep, okay. So now I have to square root the left side plus or minus square root the right. And so, cell phone ring. All right, so I'm going to get y equals plus or minus 3 over 5. And there are your answers. So you have 2 of them. All right, so here's what we have. We have y equal 3 over 5 or y equal negative 3 over 5. And there are your 2 solutions. All right. Number 9. Square root both sides. X plus 10 squared equals 169. Square root the left plus or minus square root the right. We get x plus 10 equal plus or minus 13. So we have x plus 10 equals plus or minus 13. Subtract 10, and we get x equals negative 10. Remember to write the minus 10 first. Plus or minus 13. Split it up. X equals negative 10 plus 13, or x equals negative 10 minus 13. Which means that x is going to equal 3, or x equals negative 23. All right. And those are your 2 solutions. Now notice, number 10 is just like number 9. 9 and 10 are very similar. Let's take a look at number 10. Because it looks just like number 10 looks like number 8. Number 8 and number 10 are similar. All right, let's take a look at number 10 here. So the first thing we want to do is divide both sides by 2. And so y squared equals 27. Right? So if y squared is 27, take the square root of both sides. Here we go. Y squared equals 27. Square root the left plus or minus square root the right. And so y is going to equal, well, we have to break down the square root of 17. Square root of 27. We have to go ahead and break it down into prime numbers. All right, let's do that. In fact, let's do it over here. What is the square root of 27? What does that equal? Square root of what? What goes in, what goes out? Let's see. Root 27. Let's break it down. Here we go. 27 is 9 times 3. 9 is 3 times 3, and bring down the other 3. And the index is 2, so we have to group by 2's. Group these first 2, and that's it. So you see what goes in, and you see what stays out. What did not get grouped goes in. What did get grouped, only one goes out front. So the square root of 27 is equal to 3 root 3. So my answer here is plus or minus 3 root 3. Okay? So there are your two solutions. This means that y equals 3 root 3 or y equals negative 3 root 3. Here's one answer, here's the other. All right, very good. So notice that number 10 and number 8 are pretty much the same, they're similar. It's just that with number 8, right, you had some perfect squares here. 9 is a perfect square, its root is 3. 25 is a perfect square, its root is 5. So that was perfect, that's easy, right? Whereas in this case, 27 is not a perfect square. So you have to break it down. But that's like the nature of the questions on the examination. One is going to be like perfect and easier to kind of get through, whereas the other one is not going to be as straightforward. It may not be a perfect square. You may have to break it down into prime numbers and then group accordingly. All right? All right, number 11, solve for x. All right, well, solve for x. There's so many ways to solve for x. And sometimes the instructions say, well, solve for x using the square root method. Solve for x by completing the square. Solve for x by using the quadratic formula. Solve for x by factoring. There's so many ways to solve for x, right? You choose the way you want to use. You choose the way you want. All right? So we can factor. You can complete the square. You can use the square root method. You can use the quadratic formula. I mean, there's so many ways to solve for x. You can factor it, complete the square, quadratic formula, square root method. There are many ways to do it. You just have to look at the problem and see what's probably the best way to do it. All right? In this case, let's see. I'm going to subtract 2x and minus 1 from both sides. So I'm going to have x squared well, let me write it like this. If I subtract this on one side, let me write it on the other side. Minus 2x minus 1 over here. If I subtract it on the left side, right side, I'm going to subtract it on the left side. So I'm going to get x squared minus 2x minus 1 equals 0. Okay, what's the best way to go? Can you factor that? Is it factorable? Can we complete the square root method, quadratic formula? What will you use to solve for x? What's best? Let's see. Well, we can't factor this necessarily because we don't have two factors that multiply to -1 add up to -2. There's no such thing. So what I would probably do in this case, I would probably just solve this for x using the quadratic formula. That's what I would probably do. A is 1, B is -2, and C is -1. Put it into the quadratic formula. So x equals negative of -2 plus or minus the square root of -2 squared minus 4 times 1 times 1, all divided by 2 times 1. All divided by 2a. All right. Quadratic formula. Break it down. So x equals -2 plus or minus the square root of, here we go, 4 minus 4. Oh, that's pretty simple. Look at that. 4 minus 4. All over 2. So x now is going to equal -2. Well, that goes to 0. -2 over 2, which is -1. And so, x equals -1. And there we go. That's it. Oh, wait, no, that's not it. That's not it. That is not it. Why isn't it it? You see the mistake I made? I made a mistake here. So we got to go back and kind of fix it. Because look, C is supposed to be -1 and I have +1. Oh, phooey. So let's go back and make those corrections. So this should be a -1 for C. So this is going to be a -1 right here, which means it's going to be a +4. Which means that the answer is going to change, and so what we're going to have here is 2. So we're going to have x equals -2 plus or minus the square root of 8 divided by 2. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Because this C is -1, not +1. It's -1. So I'm going to put a negative here. And a negative times a negative is a positive. So it's 4 plus 4, which is 8. So I have the square root of 8 right here. So what we have to do now, we have to break down the square root of 8. What does square root of 8 equal? All right, let's do it off to the side right here. Let's take a look at it on the side. Radical 8. What is that? What is radical 8? Break it down. So 8 is 4 times 2, and 4 is 2 times 2, and bring down the other 2. Bring down the other 2. So let's see here. We group them by 2's. So we see what goes in and what goes out. So we have a 2 on the inside and a 2 on the outside. So that's what that equals. And so x now is going to equal -2 plus or minus 2 root 2 all over 2. So now take them and split it up. All right, let's split it now. So what does this mean? This means that x, here we go. So that means that x is going to equal -2 plus 2 over root 2 over 2, or x equals -2 minus 2 root 2 over 2. Well, this has to be simplified even further, because the 2 can be divided into this -2 -1 times, and then 2 go into +2 1 time. Same thing here. -1, 1, -1. So we get x is going to equal -1 plus root 2, or x equals -1 positive root 2. And those are your two answers. Those are your two values of x. So it might be best to use the quadratic formula in that case. Okay? Now, I know the board seems a bit full here, so let me just go back and go through this one more time. Let me go through it one more time. Look, I'm going to pick up right here again. We have x equal -2 plus or minus 2 root 2 all over 2. There are two conditions here. So x equals -2 plus 2 root 2 over 2, or x equals -2 minus 2 root 2 over 2. Now let's break each one of them down. Let's go back right here. I can really split this one up. Look at it. This is x equal -2 over 2 plus 2 root 2 over 2. See how I split that up? I put my denominator of 2 underneath each numerator, each term in the numerator. Negative 2 over 2 plus 2 root 2 over 2. Same thing over here. X equals negative 2 over 2 minus 2 root 2 over 2. Alright, now, which means x is going to equal, well, negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. Plus, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. This 2 divided by this 2 is 1 root 2. But we don't write this 1 out in front of our radical as a coefficient. Don't write a 1. We know it's there by default, so we get rid of it. And that's how we get negative 1 plus root 2 right here. You see that? Same thing is true over on the other side. Or x equals, alright, that goes to negative 1. And then this stays negative, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. So it's going to be negative 1 minus root 2. And so there are two answers that we have right here and right, oh wait. Oh, one of these should be minus. Right? Yeah, both of them shouldn't be plus. One should be minus. Alright. Yep, one's plus, this one, and one's minus, that one. So one's positive, root 2, and the other one is negative root 2. Alright, so there are two solutions on that. Okay, let's erase everything. Erase, 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 erase. Erase, 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 erase. Erase it all. Okay. Alright, so now we're on question number 12. Take a look at 12 now. We have x squared plus x minus 6 equals 0. Solve for x. Alright, several methods. If they ask for completing the square, you don't have to do completing the square. If they ask for quadratic formula, you may not have to do quadratic formula. If they ask for square root method, you may not have to do square root method. Use whichever method that works for you. But you have to analyze the problem and see which method may work best for you. More than one works, but it's whichever one you want to choose. Okay? I look at x squared plus x minus 6. I think the factor automatically. Because I know the product of two numbers which gives me negative 6, but its sum is positive 1. I mean, no doubt about it, it's going to be 3 and negative 2. So I'm going to take this here and just factor it. That's going to give me x plus 3 times x minus 2. See that? X plus 3 times x minus 2 equals 0. That's how it factors. Now just solve each factor. So solve this factor here. So x plus 3 is 0. Or, now solve this factor here. X minus 2 is 0. Solve it. Subtract 3, subtract 3. So x equals negative 3. Or add 2, x equals positive 2, and you're done. No need to complete the square, no need for quadratic formula, no need the square root method. Just go ahead and just factor it and be done with it. Alright? That's 12. 13. 13. Let's see what 13. Okay. 13. Negative y squared minus y plus 5 equals 0. Alright, so first it wants to identify ABC. Okay? ABC. So A is negative 1. B is negative 1. C is 5. ABC is done. Negative 1, positive 5. That's ABC. Next, Determine the discriminant, or the nature of the roots. So this right here is step 1. Step 2. The nature of the roots. Look at b squared minus 4ac. Let's see what that is. That's going to give me negative 1 squared minus 4 times a, which is negative 1, times c, which is 5. Alright. This is going to give me 1 plus 20. 1 plus 20. Because a negative 4 times a negative 1 is positive. A negative times a negative is positive. So I have 1 plus 20, which is 21. So what does this mean? This means I have 2 real solutions. 2 real solutions. Okay, that's step 2. I have 2 real solutions. Step 3. Step 3, use the quadratic formula to find what the solutions are. So what are the actual solutions? Since there are 2 real solutions, what are they? Alright, well, let's see. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. So x is going to equal the negative of, well, what is b? B is negative 1. The negative of negative 1 plus or minus the square root. I have no work to do right here. It's done already. You know what it is. It's 21. All over 2 times a, negative 1. So that's going to mean x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of 21, all divided by negative 2. Alright, and there's your solution. So we can write that as x equals 1 plus the square root of 21 over negative 2, or x equals 1 minus the square root of 21 all over negative 2. And there are your 2 solutions. Here's one, and there's the other. Yes. Okay. That takes care of number 13. 14. Let's see what 14 is. Is the same thing. It's like 13. 14 is like 13. 14. Negative y squared plus 12y equals 36. Go ahead and move 36 to the other side. Subtract 36 from both sides. We're going to get negative y squared plus 12y minus 36 equals 0. So step 1, what's ABC? A is negative 1, B is 12, and C is negative 36. Okay? All right. Step 2. Give me the nature of the roots. Y minus b squared minus 4ac. So b is going to be 12 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 36. This is going to be 144 minus, is a minus or plus? Look, a negative times a negative is a positive, plus 4 times 1 times 36. Oh, well this should be, let me see, this is negative 1 right here. Make this one negative, because it's negative y squared, so it's negative 1. Positive 12, negative 36. So this a is -1 also. So a negative times a negative, yes, that is a positive, but we have another negative here. So a negative times a negative times a negative is going to give me a negative. Minus 144, which equals 0. So we know the nature of the roots. If we have a discriminant that is 0, then this means that we're going to have one repeated root, or what some may call a double root. A double repeated root. All right, now let's go ahead and put it in the quadratic formula. Let's find out what the roots are. So we're going to have x equals negative b plus or minus the square root. Well, I know what this is already. Well, let me write it out. B squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. So x is going to equal negative, what is b? b is 12 plus or minus the square root of 0 all over 2 times, blah, 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 blah. What is a? Negative 1? 2 times negative 1, which equals negative 12 over negative 2, which is positive 6. There you go. X equals 6. Positive 6. Another way you could have done this problem, right? Watch this. Well, I wouldn't give you the nature of the roots, but that's good. Stick with this. Because you have to show step 1, step 2, and then this right here is step 3. All right. Step 1, step 2, step 3. That's 14. All right, 15. We have y equals 2 times x plus 3 quantity squared minus 4. Step 1, does it open up? Does it open down? Well, the sign right here is positive. Positive sign. So a positive sign means that it opens upward. Opens up. All right, that's step 1. Step 2. All right. They want you to compare to y equals 3 times x plus 3 squared minus 4. Is it wider or narrower? Which one is it? Is it wider or narrower? And we said that this number here is 2. This number here is 3. And the smaller that lead coefficient is, right, the more, well, not more, but the wider the bowl is. The wider the parabola is. The smaller the lead coefficient, the wider the parabola. So this parabola here is wider because the A is smaller. It has a smaller A. So it's wider. Okay? Step 3. Find the vertex. Okay, what's the vertex? Well, the vertex is this number right here, but it's the opposite of this number. What's the opposite of plus 3? Minus 3. And this number here, minus 4. That's it for the vertex. That's the vertex. The vertex is -3, -4. All right? Now determine two additional points. That's step 4. Two additional points. Well, if I have y equals 2 times x plus 3 quantity squared minus 4, I'm going to let x equal 1, then let x equal 0. Plug it in. You're going to get two different values, right? When x is 1, what do I get? Well, that's going to be y equals 2 times 1 plus 3 squared minus 4. So y is going to equal 2 times 4 squared minus 4. So y equals 2 times 16 minus 4. So y equals 32 minus 4. So y equals 28. There we go. So that's one additional point. So the point here is going to be 1 comma 28. When x is 1, y is 28. On the other hand, let x equal 0. So we're going to have y equals 2 times 0 plus 3 squared minus 4. So y is going to equal 2 times 3 squared minus 4. So y equals 2 times 9 minus 4. So y equals 18 minus 4. So y equals 14. So there's my other point. So the other point is 0 comma 14. And so those are two additional points. You choose what you want x to equal. I chose x equaling 1 and x equaling 0. One thing you can't choose, you can't say let x equal -3 because we've already used it already. -3 is a vertex, so I can't say I'm going to let x equal -3. Because I already know the answer to -3 is going to be 4. So I can't use this number down here. It asks for what? 2 additional points. Not this point again. You have that point already. 2 additional points. Okay. All right. And oh, I didn't see that. Let me see. Oh, they give you points already they want you to use, I think. Oh, they give you the points. They tell you x is -5, and they tell you that x is -2. Okay, so they give it to you already. All right, so let's look at step 4 again. They tell you what they give you the x values. You didn't have to choose; they give them to you. All right. So in actuality, step 4 is this. Step number 4, right? We have y equals 2 times x plus 3 quantity squared minus 4. They tell you that x is -5, and they tell you that x is -2. So they give that to you already. And so now you got to plug it in and see what you get, right? If I do that, I'm going to have y equals 2 times -5 plus 3 squared minus 4. So y equals 2 times -2 squared minus 4. And so y is 2 times 4 minus 4. And y is 8 minus 4. And so therefore y is 4. So I'm going to have -5 comma 4. That's one point. If I were to use -2, we would have y equals 2 times -2 plus 3 squared minus 4. So y equals 2 times 1 squared minus 4. So y equals 2 times 1 minus 4. So y equals 2 minus 4. And so y is just simply -2. So that's my other point. When x is -2, y is -2. If they do not give you the x value, you choose your x value. If they do give you x value, just plug it in. And that's what you'll get. All right? Okay. Now, we're almost done. 2 more to go. 16 and 17. Alright. Here we go. 16 and 17. Alright. 16. We have y equal x squared plus 2x minus 8. Step 1. Write it in vertex form. Y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. Write it in vertex form. Now, if you go back to lesson 7.5, I showed you 3 methods and 3 ways to write it in vertex form. I'm not going to use all 3 methods, not right now. I'm going to use one method and go right to the, vertex form. But it might benefit you to go back and look at the 3 ways that I showed you how to write it in vertex form. Okay? Alright. So step 1, let's write it in vertex form. So I'm going to have y equal x squared plus 2x, move the minus 8 over. Some space there. Okay? Once I do that, I'm going to come back and pick it up. And so y equals x squared plus 2x minus 8. I have to put something here. Alright? So I need to take half of 2 and square it. Half of 2. So what I need to put right here, I need to take half of 2 and then square this. That's completing the square. That's going to give me 1 squared, which is 1. So I must add 1 and then subtract 1. Notice the blue does nothing. You're giving something and you're taking that same amount away. But you do that for grouping purposes. So now we have to group like that. You see? Have to group it. So now we're going to have y equal, you take your trinomial square and write it as a binomial square. That's going to be x plus 1 squared. And negative 1 minus 8 is a negative 9, and you're done. There you go. All right. That's in vertex form. Okay. Find the vertex. That's step 2. Vertex is, remember, it's the opposite of that one. Negative 1, comma, negative 9. That's the vertex. Opposite here. Negative 1, negative 9. All right. Find the zeros. Step 3. Find the zeros. How do you find zeros? You must let y equal 0. Let y equal 0. That's how you find the zeros, by letting y equal 0. Let's let y equal 0. So, this is step number 3. So we're going to have 0 equal x plus 1 quantity squared minus 9. I'm going to rewrite it the other way. I'm going to write this first. X plus 1 squared minus 9 is 0. Solve it. Add 9. Add 9. So I'm going to have x plus 1 quantity squared equals 9. And now go square root method. Take the square root of the left side plus or minus the square root of the right. The square root symbol and the square cancel, so I have x plus 1 equals plus or minus 3. Subtract 1 from both sides. So x equal, again, remember to write this first. Write the minus 1 first. negative 1 plus or minus 3. Split it up. So x equals negative 1 plus 3, or x equals negative 1 minus 3. Which means then that x has to equal 2, or x equal negative 4. Alright, there you go. And that's going to give me my solutions for number 16. I think that's all they're asking us for. And for 16, now they want you to find 2 additional points. Alright? So find 2 additional points. So, if we want to find 2 additional points, so here's what this means. We know that zeros occur at 2 and zeros occur at negative 4. So if I write it as a coordinate point, here we go. When x equals negative 2, when x equals 2, y is 0. And right here, when x equals negative 4, y is also 0. How do you know? Because we said what? Let y be 0. So when y is 0, we get an x of 2. And when y is 0, we get an x of negative 4. So put it as a coordinate point. So it's going to be 2, 0, and negative 4, 0. Alright, so we have those 2 points. Now we need 2 additional points. So you choose what you want x to be. I'm going to let x equal 1 and let x equal 0. I'm going to choose 1 and 0. Alright? And it doesn't matter where you plug it in. Right? You can plug it into the vertex form or the original. So if I want to use this, you can use this function. You can use y equals x squared plus 2x minus 8. Or you can use y equal x plus 1 quantity squared minus 9. Plug in 1 for x and use either one of those 2 equations. Doesn't matter. You can use this one or that one. It's up to you. Because they're both going to give me the same output. Alright, if I choose the first one, that's going to give me y equals 1 squared plus 2 times 1 minus 8. And so y is going to equal 1 plus 2 minus 8. And so y equals 3 minus 8. So y equals negative 5. So I get the point 1 comma negative 5. Right? Or what if I use the second one? If I use the second one, if I use this one, well, that's going to give me y equals 1 plus 1 squared minus 9, and y equals 2 squared minus 9, and y equals 4 minus 9, and y equals negative 5. So that's going to be the coordinate point 1 comma negative 5. So it doesn't matter which one you use. Use either formula. You can use either one. They give you the same output. Alright? And likewise, when x is 0, I'm just going to use one of them now. So y equals 0 plus 1 squared minus 9. So y equals 1 squared minus 9. So y equals negative 8. So when x is 0, y is negative 8. And there's your additional points. This one and that one. So those are 2 additional points. Okay? Alright. Last one. 17. 17, 17, 17. 17. All right. I think 17 is more the same. Like 16, I believe. Yep, 17. We have y equal x squared minus 2x plus 3. All right, write it in vertex form. Okay, vertex form. That's step one. Okay, this time I think I'm going to use another way to write it in vertex form. This time I'm going to use the algorithm that says y equals x plus b over 2a plus 4ac divided by b squared all over 4a. I use that to write it in vertex form, okay? Let me identify ABC. So a is 1, because 1's right here. B is -2, and C is 3. So y is going to equal x plus -2 over 2 times 1 plus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 3, minus -2 quantity squared all over 4, this should be 4a, all over 4 times 1. So y is going to equal x, and this should be squared. That's going to be squared. So this should be x, -2 divided by 2 is -1 squared plus, let's do the arithmetic over here. That's going to give me 12 minus 4 over 4. So we're going to have yx minus 1 squared plus, what is this going to give me here? This is going to give me 8 divided by 4, which is 2, plus 2, and there you go. That's vertex form. Y equals the quantity of x minus 1 squared plus 2. Okay? So that's step one. Or we could have did it the other way. We could have said, look, y equals x minus 2x plus 3 with the space. And then said y equals x minus 2x plus 3. Take half of 2. Half of 2 is -1. So we could have said plus half of -2 and square it, and minus half of -2 and square it, which is y equals x minus 2x plus 1 minus 1 plus 3, group this. That's going to give me y equals x. This should be, squared, squared, squared. That's going to give me x minus 1 squared plus 2, which is the same thing I have right here. So you can do it either way. All right. So that's done. Okay, what's the vertex? Then find the zeros. All right, step 2. What's the vertex? V. What's the vertex? Well, it's the opposite of this. It's the opposite of -1. The opposite of -1 is +1. And then go up 2 units. All right, step 3. Find the zeros. You have to let y equal 0 to find the zeros. So if I do that, I'm going to have, well, y equals x minus 1 quantity squared plus 2. So 0 equals x minus 1 quantity squared plus 2, which means x minus 1 quantity squared plus 2 is 0. All right, let's subtract 2 from both sides. -2 minus 2. And we're going to get x minus 1 squared equals negative 2. Square root method, so write it again. So we're going to get x minus 1 squared equals negative 2. Square root the left side, plus or minus square root the right side. Square root and square cancels out, so we're going to have x minus 1 equals, here's where we have a problem, ladies and gentlemen. We got plus or minus the square root of negative 2. We have a negative inside the radical. Look at that. Negative inside of the radical, and we have an even index. That means no solution. And stop right there. That's not going to give us any solution. No, it's not going to give us a real number solution. It's an imaginary number, like an I. We're not doing any I's right now. So we have to stop. Alright, so it's no solution. I better yet write no real number solution. Okay? That's it for that. Then it says find 2 additional points. That's step 4. Did they give us the points? No, we just have to find the points. Alright, step 4. Let's find 2 additional points. So we're going to let x equal 0, let x equals 1. Let's see what we get. So y equals x minus 1 squared plus 2. So y equals 0 minus 1 squared plus 2. So y equals negative 1 squared plus 2. So y equals 1 plus 2. So y equals 3. So 1 point, when x is 0, y is 3. We got that one. Now let x equal 1. Okay. Y equals x minus 1 squared plus 2. Y equals 1 minus 1 squared plus 2. Y equals 0 squared plus 2. Y equals 0 plus 2. So y equals 2. And so when x is 1, y is 2. And here are our additional 2 points. Okay, that's the review for test number 4. Okay, so please go over the video again and again. And if you have any questions, be sure and email me, text me, reach out to me, and I will surely answer your questions. All right? Whatever you do, continue to social distance yourself, continue to wash your hands, stay home as much as possible, and no matter what's going on, always, always stay positive no matter what. Okay? All right. See you next time.